Recorded live from deep in the heart of Texas. Welcome to another CloverTac podcast with a conversation that brings together the firearm industry and the community. Are you ready for the show? Well then, let's go!
What's up, crew? Welcome to another CloverTac podcast powered by our friends over at SDS Arms. And we will be talking more about them a little later on in the show. It is matter of record here, March 17th, St. Patty's Day, 2025. Speaking of St. Patty's Day, well, first of all, happy St. Patty's Day. But second of all, CloverTac.com, click shop, go to the merch store, pick what you want. Use code LUCKY, save 10%. It's pretty much that simple. So for those that are filing in out there live, welcome. Remember, Super Chats do get priority. Also, if you're out there live, we always have the Super Chat goal, which will extend into a random chat after we record this podcast with our guest. So that is always kind of a fun time. If you are in replay, well, all the cool kids join live, but that's okay. Come over here, join live, and participate in the chat because we always have a good time while we record these podcasts. Now, let's get the man of the hour in, Mikey Ball. What's up, man?
What's up, my man? How you doing?
Long time no see, right?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, you bet, man. Welcome. So maybe a little change of pace for you.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I love the change of pace.
You're either running your own show or kick back on a panel with like 20 other people. Right.
That's right. And lately I haven't been doing a lot of that panel stuff. I've kind of taken a seat back from it. I did a lot of that, and I think that people basically got my takes from that. And I don't like to go on people's panels. I'm not trying to steal camera time from anybody. I'm not sitting there trying to get time from some, you know what I mean? I'm not sitting there trying to actually take time like that anymore. Especially when you've been live streaming for a long time, like I have.
Right. Yeah. And what happens with me more often than not, I think, is something will go on in the chat and then somebody will send me a link, usually on Discord. And by the time I get to the panel, which is only like 30 seconds or whatever it is, like they've completely had an ADHD, ADD moment and jumped to some other completely different topic.
Yes.
So now I'm sitting there like, okay, this is not
Are we ever going to go back to the conversation that you called me in for,
Usually no, right?
Yeah, like usually no.
No. Which is crazy. But I want to give you a second here, Mikey, if you would. And this is just something that all the guests here kind of have to go through to kind of talk about your background with firearms. Hit on some things like, growing up, and I know, where you grew up. And I mean, you can mention states or cities or whatever if you want, but talk about growing up. Was it a thing? Were you around them? Your first experiences? What was the culture like? Just that sort of thing.
No, that's a great question. Okay. So I grew up in Long Beach, California, and growing up there, as you guys probably know, California is a very strict gun law state.
A little bit. Yeah.
a little bit. Right. But I did grow up around them. My father is not a competitive shooter of any kind, but he is, I guess, an enthusiast. So I grew up with that, and I, of course, had friends and stuff like that they were a little older than me and stuff like that. So of course I grew up around it, and I took it very serious. Even at a very young age. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be able to handle a firearm completely safely and competently. I wanted to make sure that I can actually not stripe myself or anything like that. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So, but grew up in Long Beach, and it wasn't really, and everything when you buy firearms out in California, I think you probably would know, it's just a hassle, because once there's a list that, hey, you can use these and you can buy these, but then all of a sudden the next year there is no those same firearms are now not on the list. So it's really weird and bizarre how they do their thing over there. But truth is I actually got into firearms fairly early, but then I got into competition shooting around 18.
Oh wow.
And so I nothing like super fancy or anything, right? But it was just running guns, stuff like that. And it was a good time. It was something that I was able to do on an outdoor range in California, which is fantastic. Because everything else in California is indoor, which sucks, right?
Right.
But now, I mean, I've moved a few times since then, and now I live in Alabama. Now I don't have to worry about none of that shit, right?
Right. Yeah. What's it like there? I mean, is it just walk in, fill out a form, pay them some money, take it home?
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's awesome that you can just go in and buy whatever you want, and not have to sit there and wait. And yeah, it's fantastic. Actually, I think that you should have the right to be able to do that.
Right. Yeah. The whole waiting period thing. Well, a couple of things. Let's get into this because I know you talk politics a lot, so I know you're
Sure.
not shy. You're not going to shy away from it.
No,
Right?
I'm not. Mhm.
But the whole idea, you mentioned two things in relationship to California. And what's up with you California people? I mean, and I say that jokingly because there is a lot of folks putting up a good fight in California. I think they just had to fight harder. They got to bring more in the ranks. That's all.
No kidding.
And they got some good support. Second Amendment Foundation, Firearm Policy Coalition. They're always bringing forth new suits and other things in California. But two things that you mentioned there. Number one, the roster. And for those that don't know, the benevolent, wonderful overlords in the California government get to pretty much decide what firearms you can own and what firearms you cannot own based on pretty much completely arbitrary rules.
Totally.
it's
Totally.
it's whatever the winds of the day tell them, right?
Yep.
Like
And it
literally.
changes all the time.
Yeah.
It's not like a one thing, like where it's for like 5 years good, type. It's like
Mhm.
all the time.
Right. Right. And there's a couple of drawbacks to that roster. First of all, is a right delayed is a right denied. Right. Correct.
That is correct. Right.
And so, any infringement is an infringement, right? Any obstacle, any
Absolutely.
roadblock. And so the consumer has that issue, right? The citizen
Totally.
has
Yeah,
that issue.
our politicians aren't dealing with that issue. You know what I
No,
mean? It's
no.
really realistically, it's us at the end of the day.
Yeah. But here's the other issue is, and I just know this because of my, connections to the firearm industry world. Getting on the roster is so difficult that there are firearms out there that, according to a lot of California's other anti-gun legislation, you could technically own in California, assuming they were on the roster. But the
Mhm.
process is such a big pain in the ass that those companies don't even bother doing it, which deprives Californians of all the latest, newest, coolest stuff,
It always does.
even if it would, right? Even if it could be put on the roster. They don't want to go through and jump through those hoops. And I don't know that I blame them, quite
Right.
honestly.
No, I don't blame the manufacturer at all, to be honest. I'd be like, you know what? Screw you guys. We got the rest of America here that's totally fine with our, not the rest, but you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then the second thing that you bring up was, when you talk about waiting, was the
Mhm.
waiting period. Waiting period is any type of time delay,
Yep.
regardless of whether we're talking about California or we're talking about the NFA even. And for those that
Mhm.
don't know, NFA is your full auto, your suppressors, your short barrel shotguns, short barrel rifles, that sort of thing. Um, you got to go fill out a bunch of paperwork on those. You pay your tax stamp. You got to wait. It takes time. Blah blah blah. Well, here's the thing: whether we're talking about that or we're talking about the California roster, if you already own a firearm, what difference does it make?
Right.
So this whole idea of you're
That's a
restricted how
great
many you
point.
can own, or you're restricted by the time that it takes, like let's concede a little bit. We're talking theoretically here. Let's concede a little bit to the anti-gunners and go, okay. For a first-time gun buyer, maybe, right?
Sure. I can actually
Maybe.
get with that. Right.
I can't get with that. I can't even
I know
get with
what you're
that because
saying.
I think
I
there's
know what
other
you're saying
yeah,
because it's staunch,
I
but
think
I
there's other
understand
issues
it.
at play. But even if we concede that, right? Even if we concede the whole idea of we don't know it's a first time firearm owner, um, the whole idea of the second or the third or the 10th or the 12th or even regulating it to you can only own X number
Right.
is silly because it only takes one.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And it's I find that a very interesting point right there what you pointed out because the cool off period is supposed to be like a thing like oh it'll make you think twice, type of situation like oh it's forcing you to not act on emotion, right? That's essentially what it's trying to do. Okay, fantastic for the first buy, like you pointed out. Like that I can get even with that for the very first. But what does it matter now that I have 15? You know what I mean? What does that why would I have to wait? Because I could go act on my emotions theoretically already.
Yep.
So why would they want to do that? And so is that just red tape, do you think? Just bureaucracy type stuff?
It's I think the play, and let me back up. I'll answer that. So put a pin in that. Put a pin in that
Sure.
question real quick, because I want to back up and I want to say that, yeah, even if we're talking about the first time firearm owner, right? And theoretically, I can understand the concession there to say it's okay for
Sure.
that. Really, I can't. That's why I said I don't come down on that. And here's why: they could choose a butcher knife or a vehicle or any number of other things, a sword,
What if I
right?
go in my
Crossbow.
workshop and I make I engineer some sort of
What if you just go in?
C4
What if you just go in there and get a hammer,
yeah,
Mikey?
boom.
Like seriously, like why would you? And think about it. Why would you jump through all the hoops and pay extra money for a gun anyway? When you can just go in there and get a baseball bat or a golf club or whatever, right?
Totally.
So the whole idea, even for the first time, that it's an emotional thing, that's all bullshit.
Mhm.
And it's designed. Here's the answer to your question. It's all designed to do two things: to disenfranchise or disincentivize people from buying firearms in an attempt to change and curb culture generationally. And the anti-gunners they've been trying that for a very long time. And if you look at things from that standpoint, they really hadn't made a lot of headway. I know a lot of people that will talk some anti-gun smack out in public, and then you get in private and they know more than I do, and they own more than I do.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
What do you what is their motivation? They get paid off to do this kind of stuff? What do you think?
What, the anti-gunners?
Yeah, they
Oh
just get
yeah,
paid to do
They're totally. I mean, think about it. So if Big Daddy Bloomberg come to you and said, "Hey, Mikey Ball," and let me back up, okay? If you're a person that is not about liberty and freedom and USA, right?
Right.
America, hell yeah.
America.
So if you're not one of those people, and you're one of those that is semi sort of socialist, like, wishy-washy, you're center, I would say a center left person, right? You don't have to even be a left leaning person. I think if you're center left even person,
Sure.
and potentially even if you're right leaning, if you're real greedy and your morals, your whatever, or your ethics are for sale.
For sale. Yep.
But
Happens all the time.
Big Daddy Bloomberg comes to Mikey and he says, "Hey, buddy, I'm going to write you a $200 million check
Right.
to go out and create some
Havoc.
anti-gun nonsense havoc bullshit."
Totally. I
There,
get that. That's the
there are
power of
people.
money.
There are people that are going to do that, and there are people doing that. It's called the March for Our Lives and Who's the Moms Demand Action, which sounds like a OnlyFans channel, but
It
I
does
digress on that.
sound like an OnlyFans channel.
Right. And so, both of those paid by big billionaire, people that they have an agenda, right?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about the leadership. Here's where it gets muddy, and here's where, as pro-gun, pro-liberty, pro-freedom people, I think we've got to be careful. Is more often than not the disagreements that we enter into, be that debates, online, like you see in the debate sphere a lot here,
Right.
or in real life, right? At different functions or political events, whatever it might be. A lot of the disagreements, the discourse, the debates that you see are happening between a rank and file member of like an anti-gun club and you. It's not a higher up. It's not somebody that is being disingenuous. It's somebody that's been bamboozled. They've been lied to. They've had the wool pulled over their eyes. Somebody has played on their emotions and tugged at their heartstrings to the point that they're a zombie follower. That's
Yep.
what it is, right?
Yep.
And the reason you can tell this is they regurgitate the same effing talking points every single conversation you have with them,
Sounds like the
over
left.
and over and over. Yeah,
Sounds like the left.
yeah, yeah. So I tell you, there's some tactics, and one of the organizations that is one of the greatest at being able to talk, across the aisle, if you will, or whatever, is this organization called Walk the Talk America. Go look them up. They do little podcast episodes every now and then, and they are an organization bridging the gap between mental health and firearm ownership. Right.
Oh,
That has
wow.
traditionally been a fairly liberal space, and they have made great strides at taking care of that, because self-deletion is 2/3 ish, right, of gun-related deaths every year.
Right. Right.
And it's the big huge stat, the big huge elephant in the room that gets ignored. We worry about these mass shootings, right? We worry about, or you hear the anti-gunners harping on the mass shootings, right?
Sure.
And even the domestic violence and things of that nature. They never address 2/3 of the issue. And so it was really cool to see the actual gun community step up, this organization be created to deal with it. Like, hey, if we're going to tackle this problem of X number of lives lost a year, let's start with the big number.
Right.
Right.
Let's go from the top down from this.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got a lot more room to work trying to lower 2/3 of it than we are address 1% or 0.5% or 2% of them. Right.
Sure.
And that's what the big, huge anti-gun organizations are doing. But one thing that you'll learn if you start following Walk the Talk America is they'll go in and it's masterful. It's almost, if if you're in the debate sphere and you're watching these different debaters, how they'll trap one another occasionally.
Totally.
They almost will do that. They will trap them because they go in agreeing. They go in going, oh, I value lives. I don't want to see anybody die.
Right.
Right. Like, and it's amazing the way that they're able to navigate, at least the rank and file. Like when they come up to one of the leaders in these anti-gun organizations, it's a little different story, right? It doesn't really throw those guys off because they've been around the block and have talked to enough people, they're prepared for it. But hang tight, Mikey, because we're a little late getting to my spot here. I got to do this real quick and say thanks to SDS Arms. Now, if you're not familiar with SDS Arms, they used to be, still are. I'm a little confused on that, quite honestly. SDS Imports. So a firearm importer, bringing in all kinds of cool stuff, from the Military Armament Corporation brand to the Tokarev brand to the, I don't even remember what else, TSOS brand. So they're trying to rebrand, though. Speaking of brand, have I said that enough? Into SDS Arms. And they've got a lot of cool stuff. If you like the 1911 stuff, they've got it. If you like the double stack 1911 stuff, they've got it. They've got the MP5 clone in that Mac 5 that they have out there. Shotguns galore, whether it's the bullpup stuff from Tokarev or the semi-auto stuff, the S2 especially, or the over and under stuff from Spandau. Shotguns. They're all out there on the net. SDS Arms. That's all you got to know. Remember, type in and play with, whether it's social media or the Googles or anything else. Tell them we said, hey, when you do run across them. So let's get Mikey back in here. So I've been talking like forever, dude. I feel like. So
no, that's
I'm
awesome.
gonna let you go now.
Hey, man. No, I really enjoyed this. And it also gets me a little bit out of my comfort zone as well, which is fantastic, because you see that what I do every single day is like politics and stuff like that. And so
Mainly hang out with a bunch of losers in your chat.
Yeah,
That's what you do.
that's. Hey, listen. We have a good ass time over there, don't we? You know what I mean? We definitely have
I
a good
agree.
time.
I agree.
And seriously, I love every single one of you guys. But I truly, I look at this as a little bit as something different and outside of my comfort zone, because I don't actually, like, some people get off on talking about themselves. Some people
Mhm.
just do. The truth is I really don't. I'm reserved in that aspect. Everything
Mhm.
else I'm very open about. And
Right.
but like, especially with like knowledge of firearms and stuff like that, I am not anywhere close to, like, let's say, your level. Nowhere close. And that's something that I think it's great to be able to recognize and go, okay, I've got so much more to go, right? And yeah, man, I love doing this kind of stuff. And by the way, I see what you got behind you. Fantastic, by the way.
That's the green screen.
Oh,
It's a
okay,
green
is
screen.
it?
Yeah,
I
no,
couldn't. I
totally,
can't even tell. Can't even tell. By the way,
totally a green screen, man.
it
Totally.
looks so real. By the way,
Nah, not touching them. Not touching them.
not
YouTube, not touching them.
not touching them. Exactly. As long as you're live and not touching them, you're good.
Right. It's kind of
But
like it.
but your knowledge on this stuff. I watch your live streams, and when you're talking specifically on whether it's a specific model or type or whatever you're talking about, you're so in depth with your knowledge of these things, and that's something that I strive for, because I'm kind of a perfectionist as well.
Mhm.
And if I feel like I don't have 100% grasp, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I'm a professional, or I'm someone that is someone, you should take my word. Right.
Mhm.
Now I do have that confidence in other aspects, even though firearms has been a huge part of my life. I still know that there's so much more out there, such
Oh
as the
yes.
different companies and knowing who's connected to who and stuff like that. And you're the pro at all of that, especially knowing your laws, which even me, people go, and I know this is really lame, and but I'm just being honest.
Right.
When people asked me, how does it feel that you moved from California and you came to Alabama? Like, how does it feel? And I go, nothing changed.
Right.
Now, I probably shouldn't say that, but the truth is my mentality is like, I have the right, you know what I mean? But when it comes to the laws and stuff, I never played exactly to their way. You know what I mean? I kind of
Mhm.
looked at it as like, this is my right. I don't care what you have to
Oh
say. I
yeah.
don't care what the state has to say.
Civil
So
disobedience, I think, is
yes,
what a lot would call that. Yeah.
yes, that is exactly what it is. And it's sad because a lot of people will follow that. And I'm not going to say they're like blind sheep, but they kind of are. It's unfortunately not everyone is built as a leader. Not everyone is built to go, hey, I'm willing to go out of my way. I'm willing to get booked on this. I'm
Mhm.
willing, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I was like, listen, if it happens, it happens.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to sit there and fight the cops or something. Like, hey man, whatever, man, take me. It is what it is.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was willing to take that consequence.
Well, I am not a civil disobedience person because, well, let me back up. I think there's degrees of that. So in some facets or stuff, yes, maybe so. But with like major things, like I'm not going to prison to make a point because I don't feel like I can be effective in an anti-gun fight in prison.
Right. I know I
So
can't.
like I'm much better off like being out here. That being said, there is a place. It's kind of like I take the pro-gun, anti-gun fighting. I look at it as a war and two factioning, like armies, right? And and we look at our military, and the military is made up of all kinds of parts. It's not just infantrymen, right? You've got support staff, you've got air crew,
Right.
you've got medic, you've got land, air, and sea, literally, right? You've got all of these different things going on. So we all have a specific role to play, even though we might not like the role that somebody else is playing. I think the civil disobedience is important. And the reason I think it's important is because that's what leads to the lawsuits quite often, right? Somebody will get popped for doing something that was quote unquote against the law, which was
Mhm.
unconstitutional fucking legislation to start
Yep.
with,
Yep.
but they broke it, right? They'll get popped And then one of these 2A organizations swoops in and says, okay, we're going to sue somebody because that law was unconstitutional and they shouldn't have got popped in the first place.
Right.
So now, does that help that person that's sitting in prison or jail or whatever while the court case is got, like, I don't want to be in that situation.
I get
Right?
you. I get you on that.
Some people are willing to risk that and willing to go through that. And I think that's awesome. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same as the frontline tip of the spear military guys, right?
Totally.
Thank God that they do that because I don't want to.
Someone needs to do that role. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was willing to do that role, at least at that time. And with not enough knowledge anywhere close legally, nowhere close. You know,
Right.
I should, at least when you do something like that, you should know your rights. You should know your laws. You should know everything about that. So you have the best case scenario.
Yeah.
I will honestly admit that I did not. And that was probably not the smartest decisions I've ever made, but it's still righteous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they say that, ignorance of the law is no excuse. You hear that, often. You
is
hear
true.
that. But that is most often the case.
Mm-hmm.
While it's not an excuse, that's usually it. I read a thing that said, and we're kind of getting off the gun topic a little here with this, but I read a thing, and I'd have to go back and look it up. Somebody out there in the chat may already have this information, or you may know it. But something like you break like 7 laws a day, laws, regulations, statutes, or ordinances.
I
Like
believe
the
that
average person breaks like 7 a day.
And
that's without trying. We're talking about people that don't intentionally speed. We're not talking about that kind of
law-abiding
right?
citizens.
Yeah, we're talking about people that are trying their hardest, right? If you tried to obey everything that you possibly knew about, there's so much crap on the books, you're still breaking like 7 a day.
Well, the thing is we have way too many laws on the books, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that everyone would agree to this. I am not a lawyer, okay? I'm not someone that knows every loophole of each and exact stat. I don't know all these things. And I think that it only behooves you to actually figure those kind of things out. And that's something that I should still do on a lot of different aspects of my life.
Right.
But anytime I do something, I usually do know what I can and cannot get away with. You know what I mean? Like I know the line. But it is very true that we have so many laws on the books, and not only just that, but they will get you on loopholes like you will try to get out of things with loopholes. They'll get you with loopholes. And that is also a point where you feel like it's a gotcha moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate the way that our laws and the way the amount that we have as well, because everything seems to be like, oh, we need to legislate this. We need to legislate. Oh, well, why are we adding continuous laws to our books here? You know what I mean? We have so many freaking laws. Why are we adding laws? And this is also one thing that, during the kind of a brief example, when we were doing the whole November 5th. And, for instance, we were doing the presidential election and all that stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had my mom ask me kind of a question while we were about to go in and vote. And she goes, well, what should we answer yes on this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, if you don't know it's through and through, you don't answer yes to change a law at all. You know what I mean? You don't sit there and say yes to add a law if you don't even know what that law completely is. Mm-hmm. Those are kind of like, you should be defaulting to no on a lot of these things, actually. Like those are default no's to be adding things to the book. But yeah, kind of an interesting little side point on that.
Right. I always go back, especially if we're talking about, Second Amendment things, and we're talking about what's the goal? Oh, the goal is to curb deletions. Mm-hmm. Well, it's illegal to delete people.
Yep. Yep. So, it actually is.
Like, where do you go from there? If it's illegal to delete people, and the sentence for that is either death or life in prison, in most cases, but that's about as harsh as you possibly get as far as the penalty for breaking that one. What other arbitrary little stupid, you can only have 9 rounds in a mag, or you can only have this particular what difference does that make?
It doesn't.
It
doesn't.
Makes no difference.
It doesn't.
It's like you said, if anything, it's an added charge. So
Yep.
it's potentially something to where they say, okay, we've got you, you deleted an entire family here. And here's the thing, you know, if you plead guilty, then we'll give you,
Yep.
murder and the whatever,
Yep.
right? And you'll spend life in prison. But if you don't, we're going to bring these firearm charges and these other charges, and maybe you crossed state lines, and maybe you did all this other stuff, and we're going to bring all these and compound it, right? Because there's 8 jillion laws on the books they can do that with, and you'll be facing the death penalty at that point.
Yeah, and don't be wearing one of
Right.
these when you get caught with one. You know what I mean? Don't do that, because now the FBI is going to have fun with your ass. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you definitely don't want an organization, and that kind of complicates things too, because that happens all the time in that culture.
Right. Yeah. So let's, you brought something up earlier, and I was thinking about you, kind of your situation and your experiences. So you're into motorcycles, right?
Love them.
So, think about the gun thing, like, I guess maybe in terms of motorcycles a little bit. I'm sure you know way more about motorcycles than I ever thought about knowing.
Well, I
Sure.
guess it's all
Right.
seat time, right? In whatever case you're doing, whether it's firearms, whether it's being a driver of a race car, or being a live streamer, I guess it is all seat time, and the amount of, you want to become better, and you actually have motivation and dedication to your passion.
Right.
And so I would naturally assume that, for instance, you would have way more knowledge than me on firearms, for instance, because that is your specialty. Same thing with kind of like motorcycles. That is a little bit of my specialty.
Right.
But yeah, man, it's a kind of an interesting world, because both of them lead off of straight passion.
Mhm.
It's interesting.
Well, and I think a lot of things. I think if you can be into the off-roading, or like the overlanding stuff. You
Sure.
can be into the homesteading, or maybe even prepping gets into that a little bit. There's a
Totally.
lot of things, I think, that um how much you're going to know, or your expertise in that experience and expertise in that certain thing is going to depend on how much passion you got. And then that passion that you've got is going to mean you spent that much time doing it, or around it, or learning, right?
Yeah, you have to have a work ethic with the passion as well.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to accept more knowledge, and willing and knowing that, hey, I don't know everything, and I want to continuously learn. I think that's what separates that, because just having passion is great. That is a good thing. And I think that it will do benefits for you in your life, just that. But then you add work ethic to it, and like having the mentality of like, I'm going to become 1% better each and every day, or whatever the case is. Right.
Right.
That's like that dedication to that passion.
Well, and another thing is I think that, I think knowing a little, I think first of all, you got to know your limitations, right?
True.
But knowing your limitations on a particular subject, knowing a little by a lot, people say, well, that's dangerous. Well, I agree. If you don't know your limitations, it can be. But I also think it's an asset, right? And I'll relate it to this. So if you're out there, you've never handled your own firearms, you've never handled firearms, anything like that, I would suggest you find a friend that's into it. You find somebody in the community, you find maybe some classes, you find some other things, and just go out and experience it. If you don't become a firearm owner, and all of that stuff, great. But at least now you know that you can do it, you know what it's about, you know how to be safe, and that sort of thing. And I say that to say, on the motorcycle side, I know enough about motorcycles. I can ride a motorcycle. I'm fairly familiar with, different
Sure.
laws and other things with motorcycles, right? But I'm not a biker, right?
Right.
I'm just not into that.
Totally.
But if it ever happened, something happened where I needed to get on a motorcycle to get somewhere, I could do it.
Yes, totally. I know exactly what you mean by that, and I respect that, because I know, it's whatever you focus on, man. And that is not your main focus. And I totally understand. Like you understand a concept of a clutch, you got it right there on your hand. You got a concept that you got to change gears. You got that down by your foot. You've got your front and back brakes. You
Well,
can
unless you're
figure that out, easily.
unless you're suicide shift. And I had
Yeah, and then you're sitting in the
I
middle.
had a I had a buddy that had one of those, and that was about awkward. Right there.
Well, listen, everyone, when I got amputated, everyone was like, "Oh, are you going to have hydraulic? You're going to switch gears from hydraulics, or are you going to do a suicide shifter?" And I'm like, I still have like the leg, you know what I mean? Like if I have my kneecap, that means I can shift still. So I want to be able to still do it. Now, especially on a Dyna, which is a kind of a sporty, if I had to kind of compare it, it's like a dirt bike style Harley. Okay. So what I love about them is they're mid controls like a dirt bike. And to me, those are I don't know, those are the best in my opinion. But if I can still shift gears, which originally the only thing custom I had to do was get a heel toe shifter. So on those big bagger motorcycles that you see, you'll see a back pedal or a back lever and a front lever connected to one bar.
Right.
Essentially. And that allows you to kick down for, going up a gear or kick down to go down a gear. And you just have to push down on each side. So I got a smaller custom version for my type of motorcycle, which doesn't really fit well without doing a super custom job. Right. So, but I was like, listen, I still got my kneecap. If I still got my kneecap, I'm still riding, and I'm still shifting with that same leg.
Right. Yeah. Because you're able to I guess, get the angle right. I guess.
So all I got to do is push down forward to go down a gear, push down backwards to go up a gear. So I don't have to like hook my foot under the lever and pull up and stuff like that because I can't bend the toe, obviously. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of a interesting thing, right?
A lot of tractors nowadays work that way too, with forward and reverse.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of just push
the Kubotas we have. You either push it forward or push it back.
Yes,
for reverse.
Exactly. That's a heel toe, essentially.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. With being where you are now, have you gotten out and gotten to ranges and got to get some trigger time in and play around?
So I have not gone to any ranges. Okay. Ironically, I probably should. Right now.
If you got other places to go, not necessarily.
That's the whole thing. So I have to. I'm not someone that's like super like I have to be shooting all the time. But I'm going to be honest. I do have to shoot off about 200 rounds a week minimum. Okay. Now that's to some that's a lot. To some that's nothing. Right. For me, I go out here, right here. I go right up front my front door, and I've got a 15-acre lake. I get to shoot across, at. I got no neighbors.
Yeah.
So for me, I just go out there and I just post up wherever and just start popping them off.
Do it.
And I have steel targets. I can put across the lake and stuff like that. And
perfect.
Have a good time because there's nothing behind it. There's no neighbors or anything, so I can prop them up, and they're already propped up out there. So I can just go out there anytime, bing, 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 and then come back inside, feel like got it out.
Right. Yeah. Same way. I mean, being able to shoot, there at your house, is awesome. Like
I've never had that. I've never had that.
There isn't a day that goes by that, I'm not pulling triggers on something. Or, let me take that back. There are days when I'm not pulling triggers.
When you're sick.
At that point, even if I'm sick, a lot of times I'm doing
You're like, I got to go out there.
But I'm slinging arrows. I'm either pulling triggers or slinging arrows, right?
Really?
It's gonna be, yeah.
That's dope.
I've either broke out the archery and playing around or pulling triggers. Most of the time it's got to where it's triggers, simply because of all the YouTube stuff and the content and the online stuff more than anything. I would say as far as enjoying it more, I think I probably enjoy archery more.
Really?
As far as the pure enjoyment. Yeah.
Wow. Is that because of the also the amount of talent that it takes as well? It's not necessarily point and shoot. It's like you've got to there's a whole I don't know archery like that, but I have my brother-in-law who's really into that. And he tells me everything is like a science. And I'm like, okay, man, like that's cool. but
lot
I
of
don't know
ways
nothing
to
about it.
a lot of ways to screw up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, we get into we get into this with within the gun community a lot, where people will say, and this is another sticking point with anti 2A people too, that everybody needs to be trained. You need to go through mandatory training and all. How hard is it to take a device, point it in the direction you want to destroy something, and pull the trigger? Like, it's
Right,
not that
right,
hard.
right. You
Like,
point it, look at it, boom.
it's not that hard. Now, don't get me wrong. Hitting a 3-inch piece of steel at 500
That's
yards, okay, I
totally
gotcha. That's difficult.
right.
But
But from
across a
25 yards or something like that, or even 100
right,
yards, I mean, I could point any AR. You know what I mean? I could point any
pretty
AR at
easily. Yeah,
100 yards and hit that
yeah,
target.
yeah. You give me about 3 shots with any gun, and I could probably do it at even handguns or snub nose, or I can shoot my little snubs, a couple of my little snub nose 38s at 6-inch steel at 100 yards all day.
Wow.
Once I get the trajectory down, right? Once
Sure,
I get
sure. Like, all right, let me
my sight
see.
picture, my elevation down, there's nothing to it, right? And so that's my point. With archery, you've got, okay, the bow's got to be straight up and down. It can't go side to side. It can't side to side. It can't go forward and back. You got to anchor at the same point every time with the same
Yep.
pressure every time. The arrow has to sit on, the arrow has to be straight. All the fletching and the feathers on the arrow have to be turned the right way. They got to be in good shape too. You can't have any bends in the arrow. There's so many things with archery that
That sounds like too
has to
much
be right.
labor. It sounds like too much labor to me. I like to be able to point, pull that trigger, and boom, it's deleted.
But
Whatever I'm looking at.
it's just more fun. It's just more, I don't know, it's more, and I'll tell you what, one of the reasons is that I did, for the longest, I did 3D archery competitions, right? And so what that is
Wow.
basically walking the course in the woods and shooting at foam targets that look like animals, right? Well, sometimes they look like Bigfoot or Predator or the alien mother or a giraffe or whatever. But
So is it like
um,
a gun competition where you have to like land two kind of situation on target, or do you only have to land
no, you
one?
gotta. So it's unknown distance. That's first of all. All of it is typically in wooded like outdoor settings.
Okay.
You always have to have 1 foot on a stake. And the problem is the stake may be right next to a boulder, or it might be on the side of this massive hill. So it's like, how do I get my foot on that stake? And it's still, so your form is all out of whack a lot of
Yeah.
times,
Now you're
right?
like
You're
doing all
shooting like
sorts of.
you're shooting like really high, or trying to shoot down in a creek or something. It's just
Oh shit.
weird positions. Sometimes there's really long distances involved. I remember one that somebody supposedly went and walked that stage after we shot it. It had a quote unquote life-size T-Rex target at 125 yards is what they walked it and claimed that was. Now we didn't know because the distances are unknown, but we literally had to shoot through the canopy of the trees that were overhanging between us and it.
That
We
sounds
had
like
to
a
like
good time.
we had to like pick a spot because we were having to aim so high, right, to get that far,
Sure.
to like rainbow it in,
Angle. You got to
right,
angle
to
this. Yeah.
rainbow it in. That we had to go between limbs that were overhanging, right, and figure out where we were going to go to. I mean, it's just stuff like that. It's crazy, and you're out in the woods, right, and out in nature, and because you're using a bow and arrow, it's more primal. And that's why I say it's just for me I think
Well, I think it takes.
I
I
think
think.
it's more pure, and
Yeah.
because it's kind of more pure, it's more enjoyable.
Well, you're more connected. It's more
Yeah,
you. It's your angles. It's your precision. It's you doing everything perfectly in that. I would
yeah.
imagine, because I've actually only shot a composite bow, I think like 2 or 3 times.
Hmm.
Just realistically, and I didn't shoot anything of any stature or anything. I was like shooting at a cactus or something.
Well,
Um,
and the thing with a compound bow, well, let me back up. The thing with any bow, quite honestly, if that bow is not tweaked, tuned, and set up for you,
right.
you're not going to shoot it right. So
So.
picking up somebody else's bow, yeah, you can pick it up and have fun with it. But if you pick it up and you just can't get the hang of it and you can't hit anything, you
Mhm.
need to not get discouraged. What you need to do is go get yourself your own bow because you'll find
Interesting.
out real quick when your bow fits you. it's way better. And that's whether we're talking recurve longbow,
Are you doing like
compound,
more of
whatever.
like dip your tension, what you like to have on the bow, what you know what I mean? Is that what kind of you're boiling down to? Or is it the practice on the bow itself that makes you more, I guess, better at it? What do you think it is? Do you think it is you sitting there just using your own bow over and over again, or do you think it's like different tension settings?
No, it's yeah. It's not that. It's from. I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, repetition with your equipment, you're going to get
Sure.
better. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
what we're talking about.
I'm figuring.
Whether that's a motorcycle, a race car, a
Sure.
gun, a bow, anything. A hammer, a screwdriver, anything. Um, but it has to be set up correctly from the start, right? So it has to fit. So depending on your wingspan, depending on your draw length, depending on the muscles in your shoulder,
That makes
how
sense.
much weight you can pull back, all of those factor into what type of limbs you need on like a recurve or a longbow. It all factors into what type of, what length of arrows you use. It all factors into
Wow.
what type of cam system you have if you have a compound bow. There's a lot to it, and you talk about nerding out with the gun stuff, and you can, but you can nerd out just as heavy with the archery stuff.
I'm
Like,
sure you
just as
can.
heavy.
I mean, honestly, I didn't really know that you could, but it's not surprising to me.
Yeah.
Obviously that wasn't like something I got into, so I don't know like extreme amount. But I totally makes sense with anything, right? The more
Yeah.
that you do, like for instance, there are certain firearms that I can shoot that let's say I have one of my buddies 45 or something like whatever, just random. And for me, I'm maybe not going to hit the target exactly the best as I could with my own firearms that I
Mhm.
have. And I know exactly the trigger pull. I know exactly how much I need to, either point down or up or whatever, especially if you're shooting a Glock.
Mhm.
Just stuff like that, I do understand that. And that's very cool regarding archery. That's cool.
Yeah. Let me take care of something here, Mikey, and
Sure.
we'll get back and we'll finish this one up. I've got to go in and give a shout out and thanks to Gideon Optics, our friends over there at Gideon Optics, Bobby, and yeah, Bobby's crazy. But as far as optics go, red dots go, especially with handguns, pretty much all Gideon now. Just because man, they make it so easy. There's nothing worse than looking online. You're like, man, I got this new handgun. I need an optic, and you find one. You're like, man, it looks sweet. I like the way it's designed. I like the way it looks. Like I like the reticle in it. I like the way that that's going to fit onto my particular handgun. And then you're like, oh crap, it doesn't have shake awake. I got to turn it on or off. You're like, oh crap, it's red and I want green, or it's green and I want red. And everything Gideon has is shake awake and available in red and green, which is awesome. And they've got it whether you're looking for the closed emitter stuff, the open emitter stuff, what RMSC, RMR footprint. Man, they got you covered on pretty much all of it. And then for your carbines and stuff like that, some of the Prism sights and other things like that Gideon Advocate, really cool optics as well. Much like SDS Arms, they're out there all over the socials. Gideon, like the Angel, Gideon Optics. Go check them out if you get a chance. Tell them we said hey, all that good stuff. Let's get Mikey back in the house here. Um, I don't remember where that we were at with we were talking about the archery thing, and there was something I was going to bring up with that, and I don't remember what. But man, I nerded out anyway,
Oh yeah,
heavily
no,
on that.
me too. And this is not even 100% my realm, but it's something that I totally appreciate.
Yeah,
I love this stuff.
yeah. But so with do you now with the ammo? You talking about you got to get out and shoot. You certainly got a place to get out and have fun. Oh, I know what I was going to say. You said you were talking about borrowing your buddies, or getting with your buddy and using his firearm and doing this.
Sure.
Here's the thing, man. If you're having fun pulling triggers, like safety's no, and
And
I taught
safe.
this. I taught this for 2 decades, right? With doing youth shooting sports instructing. Number one is be safe. Number two, close to is have fun. Like, as long as you
Totally.
check those 2 boxes,
You're good.
like, it really doesn't matter, because being safe includes hitting close enough to the target, or at least the backstop, right? That you're not endangering anybody. So, as long as you can put, and practice makes perfect. That's the other thing. It's like, so many people will, they'll get into something, whatever it might be. In this case, we're talking, firearms, and they'll get out there, and I think it's so simple, though. Kind of like I said earlier, most people are surprised if you're out there and like I said, you've never done it. Go experience it, if no
Yep.
other reason, just so you can say you've experienced it. And most people are shocked at how much better they are than they think they would be.
Totally. Totally.
It's not difficult. Like,
Well,
I was
even if they
literally
get
teaching 8-year-olds
well,
how to do it.
exactly.
It's not hard.
And even when they do get discouraged, it's like, listen, this is as long as you're being safe and you're having fun, like you just said. I think that is exactly what needs to happen in order for that's your seat time, right? Like we're referring to. You need that seat time to become better and better. You need to be able to do the act and continue the act. Because when I first started shooting, I wasn't any marksman by any means. I'm still not. But you have to go, okay, I need to work on this and I need to do this. Like, this is what you should be able to do with everyday life, not just with a passion or firearms or streaming or whatever we're talking about. I think that you should be able to go, hey, I need to work on this. I recognize, what, every time I pull this trigger, for some reason, I'm shooting above the target, up and to the right. Why am I doing that by 3 feet? Like, what's happening here? Well, you need to start going, okay, well, let's go ahead and start making adjustments here. And this is where that seat time comes into play, right?
Yep. Check your equipment. Check yourself. Check
True.
your equipment. Real easy to look into all of those things, and just start checking all boxes till you figure out what's going on. And in this day and age, I haven't ran through with like marksman level shooting and getting tips from AI, like Chat GPT. But I wouldn't doubt if it I need to run stuff through there at some point and see what it says.
I'm sure it'll spit out some actual good
Well,
knowledge, actually.
if
You never
it's
know.
if it's pulling from everything ever written on the internet, blah blah blah,
Sure.
with all the forums and all the other stuff, I would venture a guess it would probably give you some pretty good tips on how
Sure. I'm
how to
sure it
correct
would.
stuff,
I'm
you
sure.
know.
And I'm actually kind of like that anti AI guy. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you that even with that position, I can guarantee you that it can give you some good information. It's
Yeah.
amazing how that shit works.
Yeah, I think it has to be prompted, but if it's prompted properly.
Right.
Um I want to ask a question, and having to do with losing the leg and all that, and
Sure.
shooting, because I know people that you know they have one eye, they have one leg, they have one hand, they have no hands. We had one season,
Wow.
no handed shooter. I don't know if you've ever seen that guy, but we
How are we
had
pulling
him
the trigger?
a couple of seasons ago. Well, he was born with a defect with his hands.
Oh, and so he has like maybe one or two
So he
fingers.
has like these little nubby things like
Yep.
on one or whatever, and he can manipulate that way. Um, but yeah, no-handed shooter. If you're not familiar, go look him up. He's out there. Pretty cool dude. But um, so what are there any drawbacks, any struggles, anything that you like? Oh man, I got to do this differently. This don't work the same.
Interesting. That is interesting. I would say yes. Anything to do with running. Okay, so that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So believe it or not, with amputees, we can still run. I can still run even in my leg that I'm in right now.
Mhm.
The only problem is for instance, the leg I'm wearing right now is very heavy. It's meant for more comfort, not meant for running. Now,
Mhm.
if I wanted to run, I would have to swap out this leg and put on a running blade, which is more conducive, obviously, to run.
Right.
Which I do have a running blade. But the truth is I would guess your stance, and also you got to remember you can't feel underneath that foot, right? So anytime
Ah,
that
true.
anytime that I am planning down, I look, but I mean it's not it's kind of all in one. As I'm stepping in, I'm safe. I've got the firearm. I look down. I plant my feet, and then I come up. You know what I mean? So
Okay. Yeah.
that's kind of the only thing that I've kind of adjusted
Right.
was just for the safety of that foot, because a lot of the time, because I'm right-handed, I lead with my left foot, which is my left, I don't have that leg, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
Exactly.
because I lead with that left foot, you got to be careful of, like, let's say there's a grass or muddy area or a oil area or stuff like that. Let's say if I went to plant and I didn't look, and then all of a sudden my front leg slips out from under me and I've got my finger on the trigger,
Sure. Yeah.
that's not a good thing, right? So I
Right.
did have
Yeah.
to compensate a little bit that way. But other than
Right.
that, nothing else.
Yeah, you could be on a rock. You could be,
Exactly.
I guess the good thing though, being right-handed like that, to be the left leg
Yep.
is for recoil coming back.
Yes.
You have your real leg, right?
Yes.
That's planted for that. So I mean, you're able to mitigate with that and actually feel that and follow through a little
Totally.
better, probably.
Yep.
So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how I mean, in everyday life, people don't even think, like, for instance, like, let's say when you go into the shower, like, people are like, "Oh, what do you do when you shower?" Well, you have to have a shower chair. Like, there are certain things that you can't do, and unfortunately that is just the way it is. And you
Yeah.
have to compensate, and you have to basically accept these things and go, "Okay, well, this is life. This is what I have to do.
Yeah.
No big deal." Just like with, that's why I'm so well at adjusting. I call myself kind of a chameleon in some senses, because I can just, you know what, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to adjust and do it. I'm not even going to bitch about it. Not going to even mention it. I'm just going to do it.
Well, you're one of these guys too that, and you can just tell from listening to you talk that you're one of these guys too that, there's always somebody worse off, right? Like
Totally.
there's always
Totally.
somebody. Like it
Yep.
could have been much worse, right?
Totally.
You could not
I
be
could
here
be,
with
I
us.
could
You
be
could be
dead.
missing both legs. You could be. There's no telling.
Totally. I could just be here with just a torso,
Right.
or I could be here or not even be here, right? And in that point, and I make it this is kind of prevalent, is that I look at, since that day that it happened to me where I lost my leg, right? March 6th of 2021, I look at every single day since that day as a bonus. I don't look at, like,
Mhm.
oh, this is a bleak time or like recovery and all this stuff. I was like, man, I just survived that.
Right.
Like, I'm still here. I can't believe it, And so I think that also, that with that combination of mindset and willingness and wanting to adjust, I think that it helps a lot, in the aspect of just being able to accommodate in any way
Right.
that you can for yourself.
Yeah. Well, we are on the top of the hour again. Man, time
Hey, man,
flies when you are.
having fun.
Is that what we did?
Yeah, I had a great time.
Okay.
He said, all
Well,
right.
the glass is I was gonna say half empty, but it's almost completely
Yeah, it's
empty.
nine
So
tenths. Don't
right.
worry, we got 2 more of these to go tonight, so we're good.
Right. I'm gonna give you a minute here, Mikey. Where can people find you, follow you? What do you have on deck? What's going on over there on the Insane Wheels Mikey Ball channel, which is at Insane Wheels, which is weird,
Thank
but
you, kind sir. I
it
very
is
much
what it is.
appreciate
But
that.
yeah, give your shout outs, give your spiel.
Yeah, man. And Clover, I can't thank you enough, first and foremost, for just having me on the show alone, man, and having this conversation, especially with someone that is not some sort of like pro in this space. So I got to definitely tip my hat off to you for having me on and having this conversation. And everybody here on the channel, here on the chat right now live, can't thank you guys enough as well. If you guys are new and you're on, Clover's side and you haven't seen me before, I have a YouTube channel, Insane Wheels, all one word. And also I have an Instagram, Ball Valve TV. So those are kind of like my 2 main platforms I post on. But for the Insane Wheels YouTube channel, Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. CST. Saturday, with the exception, Saturday is for members only. But Monday through Friday, we do world news, geopolitics, American news, stuff like that. And so we're just doing breaking news constantly. And it's a great time over there, man. So I can't thank you enough, Clover.
Yeah, you bet, man. And appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us for the hour, man. And
Yeah, man.
may catch you for a little while tomorrow morning, even.
That's right. That's right.
All right, be good, Maggie.
Appreciate you.
All right, for everybody else, thanks for hanging out. If you hung out over here live, yeah, we absolutely appreciate you. Did not meet the goal for this show, but there's always the next show. We've got a busy schedule this week. I think there's a day delay tomorrow. And then I think we've got like 3 or 4 more to record this week. So this was not your only chance to catch a live show, and we invite you, whether you're out there live now or maybe you're catching this in replay and think, dang, I missed it. Hey, you've got other opportunities. Go to CloverTac.com. Not only can you click shop, take advantage of the St. Patrick's Day sale with code LUCKY over there, but over on CloverTac.com, you're going to find the schedule so you'll know all the podcasts that we're recording, when we're doing them live, and you can show up and participate. Shout out again, big thanks to SDS Arms and Gideon Optics. We love those guys. So big thanks to them. Had some people always do ask about the shirts. This is our collab with Camerado. I said our collab. It is. I designed this color scheme, and you can find that camerado.com/CloverTac. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us for another CloverTac podcast. To find all of our projects, swag, and more, visit CloverTac.com. Remember, you can help support our efforts by becoming a YouTube channel member. Stay safe, and we will catch you on the next one.